Now that we've touched on this and other things we touched on the previous episode, what a listener or somebody who's going to be watching the podcast would love to know is, looking ahead, what are some of the federation's, immediate priorities in the response of, some of this current socioeconomic issues that we face, and even the political landscape. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it really comes down to everything kind of being downstream from privacy and finance.
Yeah.
So the social media site, of course, I hope to have the more immediate change simply because we don't have a platform right now which is conducive towards organizing.
Yeah.
It seems more conducive towards being broken to better monetize that as a system. So if you look at how early versions of social media worked, it was all about you getting to see what your friends did and bringing people together and sharing cat videos and things along those lines. And once, I think I talked about this earlier, everything started going more towards the publicly traded, they started having constant growth demands. And rather than expanding their business strategy or various things like that, they simply started breaking things because, well, now we've got to charge people to have these kinds of connections. It's like, yeah, your product was about bringing people together.
Yeah.
So to break that project, that offer, you're now breaking your site. And when you throw in on top of that the fact that then you're replacing it with more and more noise, where I've been on social media lately where it's like posts from your friend, suggested posts, sponsored posts, all these various, everything but the next friend.
Yeah.
For you don't know how long, and you're just sitting there, you're scrolling. And I remember where you used to just kind of scroll through and, oh, that's what that friend's doing. Oh, that's what that friend's doing. Now you're getting only a single post from a friend for every however many sponsored posts. And it's like, why I am so glad that I showed up for work today, because it's gotten to the point where using a social media site is a job because you're the labor at this point. You create the content, you look at all their ads, and the little content that does get to you, it's like, oh, look, there's this little thing. I figured out, now I can go share it, and I've got to do a whole bunch more scrolling. And that's not even accounting for the rage baiting that the current algorithm prioritizes, because that drives engagement. Well, it used to be driving engagement was more about bringing something to someone's, interesting to someone's life that's on your friends list.
Yeah.
At this point, it's like, just only friend your enemies on social media, because the way it's set up is it's almost engineered to make people miserable. So if you're going to make anyone miserable, friend your enemies.
Yeah.
I don't understand the value that brings to the social media user. I don't understand any real value that it brings to society. The only value I can see is the most superficial value brought to the shareholder, which is not what was offered to people when they were invited to participate with these various social media platforms. So that, again, is one of the reasons why we're going back to the putting all that in an irrevocable trust to be democratically governed. Because you'll see in a lot of these various projects that, well, under old management, things work this way. Under this management, things will work this way. So it doesn't matter if the old management made all of these various promises to you. What matters is what the new boss says.
Yeah.
And only by putting all that stuff under the democratic protection of the community that utilizes the infrastructure, do you ever actually have a social media site that has an interest in maintaining the positive role social media can play within families and communities?
Yeah.
Because if you think about how people talked about social media in 2008 and then compare it to now, it's a completely different conversation.
It is. Yeah.
And no one has ever taken into account the fact that those other promises were based on the concept of, well, we'll figure out how to make money from it someday. And they didn't know how.
Yeah.
We, on the other hand, the Federation, we know how we're going to make money.
Yeah.
We're going to make money through the gig economy, through being a more transparent middleman, or through the memberships, and ultimately through green energy sales and the UBI and various things like that. The social media for us is what most businesses would call a loss leader. But really, it's more of our instrument. So we are always listening to the people that the Federation is being set up to serve.
Yeah.
Okay. And that, again, that goes back to the whole setting this thing up, putting it all inside the trust, and then stepping back.
Yeah.